Hi, I'm Charlie Redner. Welcome to the Right Now Show.
And I'm Judy Saxon. And this is a program where we put the emphasis on writers, writing, and the arts.
How you doing, Judy? And what have you been up to?
Dancing.
Tell me about it.
Well, I'm not great at exercising. I know the value of it, but to get myself out the door is kind of hard. So I'm taking line dancing lessons, and I love them.
Really?
Yeah, and it's good for our brain.
Mm-hmm. Memorize the steps, yes.
And I get moving.
Right.
And they offer so many dancing lessons here. I mean, you can name it, and they've got them.
That's true.
Plus dances, so
Yeah.
we can move our feet to the beat of the music.
That sounds
and
wonderful.
And what's going on with the busiest man in Laguna Woods Village?
You say that every month, but
and you are.
Right now, I'm doing coverage on a new movie that will be out in 2 weeks. It's called Late Night. And what we do, we read the manuscript, the screenplay, we evaluate it, and then I go to the Fox studio back lot and we talk about it. A bunch of professionals in the industry come and get together and we analyze it and talk about the screenplay.
How fabulous.
I know, I've done it 3 times. I've done it with Nebraska. Remember I went to school with Bruce Dern. And then we did another one called Silver Lining Playbook. So I've done 3 of these, and I enjoy it. It's just a nice kick thing to do.
What a great experience. How lucky, how lucky. Yeah. Wow. Well, we're also lucky to have a guest with us.
Yes, and before you introduce him, I would like to show a little film clip that got our guest started in writing.
Oh, good, okay.
By Ray Bradbury.
Ray Bradbury, 30 books, more than 30 books, more than 600 stories and poems, has won every conceivable writing award in these literary genres that you can imagine. Most recently, a Lifetime Achievement Award from the National Book Awards. He embodies, you're going to hear this again in the introduction for the interview, but he embodies what we have felt all along in the writing program that we have at Point Loma Nazarene University, which is good writing across all types of genres. He has written for television, for Alfred Hitchcock Presents, for The Twilight Zone, he wrote the screenplay for Moby Dick. He's written the short stories, the fiction, the nonfiction, the poems. He's done it all. So, I would like us to give a warm Point Loma Nazarene University, San Diego welcome to Ray Bradbury.
But I discovered lecturing was a wonderful substitute, so I could just get up here and say anything I wanted to say off the top of my head. And tonight, there's a lot I want to say because I recognize the need of many of you to be writers, and you don't want to do the wrong things. So for at least 5 minutes, I want to talk about the hygiene of writing for you, so you won't do anything wrong in the next year. The first thing that comes to mind is the danger of writing novels to start. I don't know how many of you are writing novels now. If they're going well, you don't have to listen to me. But the problem with novels is you could spend a whole year writing one, and it might not turn out well because you haven't learned to write yet. But the best hygiene for beginning writers or intermediate writers is to write a hell of a lot of short stories. If you could write 1 short story a week, doesn't matter what the quality is to start, but at least you're practicing. And at the end of a year, you have 52 short stories, and I defy you to write 52 bad ones, huh? It can't be done. It can't be done.
Our guest today is Philip McCollum, who has written a book called 52 Stories in 52 Weeks, and we want to hear all about it. But first, Philip, welcome. Tell us a little bit about yourself, where you grew up, where you went to school.
Sure. Well, thank you very much for having me here. So I grew up in a little town of Apple Valley in California, famous for Roy Rogers and Dale Evans.
Right.
Up there in the high desert, I grew up there. Spent most of my youth there, and then I went to college and I went to Cal State San Bernardino. I kind of made my way down to the coast, so I've been living in Orange County for about 15 years now. I grew up in a very rural area, so it's always lots of adventure, outside, and and just.
And of course, in college, you took creative writing, and you've been writing since you were 10 years old.
Yeah, so funny you say that. And this is where this little critical voice comes in and says, well, you know, if you're a writer, you should have come out of the womb, you know,
with
writing
pen in hand.
pen in hand.
Yeah.
And I was not one of those people.
No.
And but I always had this creative streak for sure.
Okay.
And you know, first started with music. Music was my first love, and really.
You play an instrument?
Yeah, I play guitar, play
Okay.
piano. And
great.
You know, thank you, Mom, for the piano
forcing me to do it.
Yeah. My parents were always very supportive of just being creative. My dad was always a great storyteller, and then my mother just really encouraged me to learn music and just really be creative.
So you start out life as a musician and segued into writing, or?
Yeah. There was some point, and I've always enjoyed writing, but I never looked at it as something I would do as a career or anything more than just occasionally. But I always loved to read, love books, love stories, and one day about 10 years ago, sitting down with a friend over coffee, and I was frustrated with something about work, and he asked me, he said, well, okay, if you weren't doing what you're doing now, what would you want to do? And I don't know, it's the right time, something just came out, said, I'd like to write a book. And started from there.
Well, you saw that clip with Ray Bradbury that we showed.
Yeah.
And I can't believe that's 2002, and that's down at the Symposium by the Sea, run by Dean Nelson, by the way, who introduced him. He's a friend of mine.
Okay.
And they had Ray Bradbury that day, and he said those few magic words, don't write a novel,
Yes.
and complete the sentence.
Don't write a novel, start with short stories. So I was a person that started writing novels and was just having so much trouble. I had a hard drive filled with tens of unfinished novels.
Really?
And I just had this issue finishing stories. So came upon that Ray Bradbury video, that speech. It was amazing.
I thought you went to his class because you were so inspired. I said,
I wish.
Yeah.
I wish.
I did too.
Yeah, again, certain things just happen at the right time.
Yes, they do.
Happened to see that video, and I thought, okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to take his challenge, his 52 stories in 52 weeks challenge, and start finishing what I write and see what happens. Worst thing, I write maybe a couple short stories. It's still more than I had been doing.
Right,
Yes.
and finishing
That time.
them.
And finishing them.
And finishing them, yeah. So, and that was the start of my journey, and just this realization of okay, what does it really mean to be a writer? It means to write and to finish. And
Well, I have to tell you, Philip, you have so inspired me, and I consider myself kind of a writer, right? But I used your introduction at a class I taught a couple of weeks ago at the Writers Club, our principal sponsor, because you attacked this thing like a military operation. I mean, I read that and said,
Yes.
this man is dedicated to finishing this 52 and 52.
yeah, maybe the little sadomasochism in me coming out there, and had the ruler in my hand. Is that you better do this? And,
Yes, the discipline.
yeah.
I'm in awe.
Well,
You got up at 4:30, which is a start, right? That was something you
Yes.
didn't do normally, but you
Yeah.
did it so you
Because you
could.
have a day job. Now, what do you do
Absolutely.
as a...
So I do IT work, yeah. I'm in the
Oh,
IT field. I
yeah,
do
okay.
networking. So yeah, I do that as a day job, and I enjoy that. There's a little bit of creativity involved there,
You
but
set up networks, or you maintain them for a
I
company?
do both. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. I work for an
Oh,
insurance
my.
company, and I do all their computer networking. So
Okay.
yeah.
And you got up at 4:30 in the morning.
Yeah, I realized there, the time doesn't come to you. You have to make the time, right?
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
Wise
I
words,
learned
yeah.
that, and so I stared to look at my day and said, okay, when can I sit down and write?
There was no time in that.
Right, and I have my day job, which sometimes is a lot of hours, and then I come home and I have a young son.
Yeah, I
Also,
know
and I have
that.
my wife, and so I want to enjoy time with my family too.
course.
And so the two things that are really important to me, I'm a very big proponent of sound body, sound mind.
Right.
So I also want to make time for exercise. So I make sure I do that too. Keeps me sharp and.
Do you have equipment at
just
home,
feel
or do you
better.
run out to the
I
gym
usually go to
somewhere?
the gym, yeah.
That is so disciplined.
That is.
Wow.
But I wanted to take that, the discipline of that, and apply that to writing too. I said,
Yes.
well, this is something I really want to do. I need to apply that same discipline. So, you know, I like I said, at 4:30 a.m. The city is quiet, the house is quiet, everything is quiet, so you just have that time to yourself to really sit down and focus, and it's so important.
So did you have to go to bed earlier to get up to?
Yes, yeah. So
Yeah.
there were nights where, okay, maybe I only got 4 or 5 hours of sleep, and I tend to make up for that the next day, because I'm so tired. But I really made it a point that I just have to do this, you know, even if I'm tired that day and I go to bed earlier the next night. But yeah, it was so important to me to sit down and prove to myself that, okay, I am a writer, so I need to write.
Yes.
Now I hold this book. It weighs about 4 pounds, I think. I noticed you brought 2 copies, or at least 1 copy of each. You broke this into 26 and 26.
Yes.
And by doing that, you have a much thinner book, and you sell them that way. Have you?
Yes, yeah, I do. So the way I tend to market is the larger book. It contains all the stories, but also contains the background behind the process of
Yes.
Oh, we got to talk about that some
Yeah.
more before we get back to it. But
yeah,
go ahead.
absolutely. So, yeah, the idea was to that, and people that just want to read short stories and don't want to have to
these
hold a
two. Right.
50-pound book, you know.
Right.
Yeah.
These
Volume
so I
1
broke
and
them up
Volume
that
2.
way.
Yeah.
Well, what I loved about this book, in addition to the stories, and I've read a number of them, not all of them yet, but you write faster than I read, so excuse me. You and Stephen King, I can't keep up with Stephen either. But anyhow, what I loved about the book was what you did at the beginning. You told the synopsis of it. You gave us the word count. You gave us the genre,
characters were.
And then at the end, you really blew my mind when you gave how the story came into
How it
being.
came about.
Right, right. Yeah, you know, to me, really interesting part of a lot of the books authors put out there is the information. You know, they'll have a couple pages
Backstory.
of, yeah, what's the backstory? Where did I come up with this idea? Where, you know, how did it turn into this story? So I always found that very interesting. And, and as writers, we're always interested in other writers' processes too. So,
absolutely.
Yeah, so I thought, this is perfect.
We are. I mean,
you know?
that's why I use this as a teaching aid to the class I taught, because there's the background, and this is how it came about.
Yeah, absolutely. And I really appreciate that you've done that. And the introduction, you know, over a year, you're going to learn a lot of things. And so I really want to share everything I learned in this whole process. And I didn't put everything in there because it would have been another 50 pages. But I tried to hit the most important points, you know, for writers, and it really is just focus and dedication, and you know, writers write and writers finish. And
Writers, yes. Yeah.
And I also wanted to talk, when you finished writing this manuscript, you went out and got yourself in design and decided you're going to become a book designer.
Amazing.
And you learned that program on your own?
Yes.
Because I use that program, but I have a book designer that does it for me. That's an incredible program.
Yeah. I would love to have somebody else take that process, but it was fun for me. And being in IT, it's a little easier for me to pick up some of the things in there. So. But to me, that's another part of the creative process.
But you had to make a decision. What size type? What was the spacing? The by measures, and these mind maps that you did, or whatever you call them.
Exactly.
I mean,
yes.
so many decisions had to be made just at that point in it.
Absolutely, yeah. So it's
God.
it's a new world of self-publishing, right?
Yes.
We have the ability. It's much greater and easier to do now than it's ever been.
Exactly.
And so I'm always very interested in you know, what can we do for ourselves as writers to get ourselves out there, get our work out there. So.
Yes.
Yeah,
And then you went to a book signing, which I was privileged to attend 2 weeks ago.
Yes.
How did that go, and what was that experience like?
That was so much fun. You know, it's one of my favorite bookstores, Bookman in Orange. They've been there for at least 25 years. And great place. And I do a lot of my book shopping there because they have a lot of wonderful
I love that
stuff,
bookstore.
Like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was my first book signing ever.
Okay.
And, you know, I had seen on Facebook, Bookman posted a local authors section, and so I asked him, how do you get in there?
Take my
I'm a
book.
local author.
Yeah.
You know, I'd love to. And so he said, well, bring it in, and you know, we'll put a copy up there. And 2 weeks later, I made my first sale, and there it was fantastic.
Wasn't that a thrill?
Oh, that was great. You know, just for somebody to walk in there,
You go
and
knock
pick
on
up
their
your
door and
book
say, well, I signed the book you just bought. I got your address from Bookman's.
yeah, exactly. You know, it was just so amazing. So
that's a
it was
great
great
thrill.
opportunity just to talk to people that came in and
Well, you had 3 other authors with you. That was nice, too.
Yeah.
You had a little community of
Yeah,
authors.
right.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and it's great to meet the other authors, and I'm also part of a local writing group, so to talk with
you
the
are?
other authors too is.
What writing group would that be?
It's a Southern California Writers Association.
sure.
I know that.
Yes,
I've been to
yes.
one of those
Okay,
sessions.
yeah, they meet, I think, the 3rd Saturday every month at Claim Jumper in Fountain Valley. So and they always have great speakers. And
Yeah, they
just
do.
The networking is really good, yeah.
Go ahead.
Did you take an online writing workshop, I read?
Yes.
Yes, and
Yeah.
it sounded like you were so pleased with that.
Yes, you know, there's a pair of writers, husband and a wife, that I really admire, and they have these online writing workshops, and they're just very big proponents of, you know, exactly what I've talked about: writers writing, writers finishing, and one of the big things I learned over this journey is really. Everybody has this critical voice, you know, that's saying, oh,
Don't
you
we?
can't write this,
Yes,
or oh, your mom's going to
yeah,
read that,
yeah.
so you better not put that there. And so all these things that keep us from finishing, keep us from telling the stories that our subconscious just really wants to put on the paper. So the writing courses are really taught me a lot in regard to that, and also just different parts of the craft. But yeah, they're definitely. You know, learn as much as you can about the craft, and then you know, as you sit down, just like language, have we learned to use? Okay, where's a period go? Where's a comma go?
Yes,
It
yes.
just sort of seeps through. So.
In your intro, you had something, so many wise points, but you are the worst possible judge of your work. That was
Yes.
interesting because
Yes.
sometimes when I write, I think, well, that's pretty good. Maybe it's not.
You know, it's so true. It's funny because my neighbor had started reading my stories too, and she came to one of the stories that in my summary of the story I said, "This is the worst story I've written so far. I didn't know where to go with this," and she said, "I loved it. I thought
There
it was
you go.
great."
See, there
And
you go.
yeah, and you just never know. So that's I think why it's so important to
Yes.
put your work out there, because you never know. Yeah.
But what about, do you have a policy of letting friends read it or not letting friends read it, or?
Great question. So there's a danger there. Okay, because you value your friends' opinions,
Yes,
right? And
yes.
especially your family, your friends,
Yeah.
and so you have to be careful. If it starts to affect your writing, you really want to. Probably don't want to ask their opinion at that point until you're ready, you know, more comfortable with being that's their opinion, and I appreciate that as them as a reader.
Do you have beta
But
readers, specific
typically
people that
my
you
wife, so she's
Typically,
always my
okay.
first reader essentially,
Okay.
and
We
she'll
should
tell me.
explain what a beta reader is for those that don't. 'Cause
Yeah.
I wasn't familiar with the term when I first heard it.
Sure. So beta reader, and I think different people have different definitions.
Oh, okay.
Some people will have multiple beta readers, and they'll take a lot of what the beta reader says, and this is after they've essentially done their maybe first or second draft of the story. They'll give that beta reader a copy, and the beta reader will just kind of read it and give feedback. Say, well, it was a little slow here, I thought, or this part didn't make sense. So a lot of writers will take that information and go back and try to fix their story, things like that. But what I found interesting is the writers I talked about before that I learned from. You know, it's good to take that information, but be careful when you go back to fix things, because you're the author, and you know you start letting that critical voice back in, and you could kill a very good story.
Right.
So what I've learned is, take their advice, listen to their advice, and maybe apply it to the next story. So
one of my greatest honors, you know, over in Tucson, I met Michael Blake, who wrote Dances with Wolves. I became his beta reader. He never sent anything out again until I read it.
Wow.
I mean, I was so honored. I don't know why he considered me.
That's great.
It's wonderful.
Yeah, he was incredible too, and he's written a lot more than Dances with Wolves, but he's and you know what? He ended up self-publishing too, because
Did he?
Yes, he did. He started his own company and started publishing his own works because he didn't like the process.
Wow.
And if you write a good book and you're going to give away the profits to, you know,
Yeah.
the
Yes.
distributor,
Yes.
the
Very-
publisher, and everybody
Very
on the line.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
he put his own, and did hard-covered books and everything, so it was interesting.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you about the marketing side for yourself. In addition to signing books, you're selling it online through what, Amazon?
Yeah,
Or
through
Any other
Amazon.
distributors, Barnes & Noble or anybody you're interested in getting distribution there?
So I'm still working on that for the paperback to figure out how I'm going to do that. But for as far as ebook, yeah, it's available all the major stores. I use a service called Publish Drive that will actually just you send them the ebook and they'll distribute it to all, you know, Google Books, Apple, iTunes, iBooks, things like that. So it's fantastic.
And for the paperback, you need distributors, you need...
Yeah, so for the paperback, I had actually started with Amazon as was CreateSpace at the time to create the book, but the problem with that is a lot of the other bookstores won't carry it
That's right.
because it's printed by Amazon, a
Right.
competitor, right? So,
Yes.
so I started recently converting to Ingram Spark.
Ingram Sparks,
Yeah, which is more wider distribution,
Right.
And also it can help you get in the libraries too, which is a
Yeah,
big
that's
thing,
important, too.
So I
Yeah.
would love for that to happen. So I'm working on that.
What about speaking at libraries? Is that a viable?
You know, it's a great
choice?
question. I had to look into that because, yeah, I know one of the things I want to do is I would love to use this as more speaking opportunities
Sure.
and
Right.
really get the word out there.
I'm going to invite you to the Writers Club to be a speaker. They would love to have
Yes,
you. Yeah, the one that I taught on
great.
your book, they know you already,
Yes,
so
yes.
I'll get you an invitation. I have some.
Thank you.
You've got some
I know the
connections.
president.
But,
Yeah, that's a good idea. I did a library. We did down in Oceanside. We did the library down. We did a poetry reading, and Michael Blake drove all the way from Tucson to come to that to read with me. Was that a friend? And we sold books there, you know, after the
nice.
reading. But you can
I'll
talk
have
to
to
the
check.
libraries. Yeah.
yeah, that'd be great.
You've got so much free time.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, that's you know that's the one thing as a writer, or as a self-published writer especially. It's
Yeah.
okay. The writing is just one part, and then,
Right.
okay, then you have to think about the publishing, the marketing, things like that. But you know, right now I'm really trying to focus on building the inventory. So I'm just really trying to focus on the writing. as
You're
much
the
as I can.
Rod Serling of today. I enjoyed your work
Yes,
because I
yes.
enjoyed that series, that TV series. There are
Thank you.
scenes
Yes.
in those stories that I still remember to this day. And
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, they were incredible stories, and you kind of build that in there, and it's
thank you.
really
That's
interesting.
very flattering.
There's a, you know, TV series in there too, probably.
Oh yes, yes.
You need a good agent. Do you have an agent?
There you go. I don't have an agent yet. No, I haven't.
Got to find you an agent because I swear
Yeah.
there's
Yeah.
so much material in there, and it is
Oh,
good.
thank you.
It is really good,
Thank
Philip.
you.
Oh,
I appreciate
absolutely.
that.
Yes, and the endings, you're never
Yeah.
sure how they're going to end, and just your whole plot. It just keeps the reader what's going to happen next.
Oh,
Which
thank
You talked
you.
about
we
that
all
one
want.
story that where you didn't feel the ending, and you didn't disclose the sex of the main
Oh,
character.
right.
Tell me about that. Somebody thought that the book didn't, the story didn't end right. It didn't have a
Yeah,
great conclusion or a great end.
Yeah, you know, and that's where just the different readers have different tastes and different
Right.
ways to interpret stories.
Right.
And, yeah, and I know one of the things I've found in this process of writing is, okay, I know where my weak areas are and my strengths are, and so endings for me have been, in my opinion, a weak area in some parts. But yeah, there was a story I wrote, and I don't know where it came out. It was set in the Nepali jungle and involved a family there.
Right.
And, but yeah, the point of view character, I made a point not to identify if it was a woman or a man at the time. But yeah, and a lot of people, it's interesting what they picture in their mind.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, a lot of people interpret.
We're not
it
going to
as-
have a lot of time to talk about it, but I'll tell you, the name, just the names of the characters, you did some research on that. When you talked Nepal, I realized those names are from India or the near regions.
Right.
And the others, the Southern California Indian names, I mean, you spend some time researching too.
Well, you know, part of the joy in writing these stories is I'm a curious person, right? And so it gives me an opportunity. If I don't know anything about for whatever story idea pops in my mind.
Yeah.
And the beauty is now we can go on to Google and just search
Yes,
for this
isn't
stuff.
it
Yeah.
And the
I love
Philippines,
it.
I mean, wherever you're writing, you can do the research, and
Yeah,
you do.
yeah.
Yeah.
And it's just
That's
fun
great.
for me. You know, it's just so much fun. So,
And isn't that important too?
absolutely important.
Loving what you do,
Yes.
having fun. That's the best.
Like all of our
Exactly.
guests, Judy, we're going to have to invite him back again.
I can't-
We're going to run out of time.
I can't believe it. Wow.
I can't believe it either, because I throw in a couple of minutes of video, which takes away from us, but that adds to our
Wow.
stories, I hope. Do you have
Flew by.
something of interest to tell
Yes,
our group?
this is a quote from Ray Bradbury.
Ah.
If an idea isn't exciting, you shouldn't do it. And I have one more that by Ray Bradbury. My goal is to entertain myself and others. Doesn't that say it all?
I looked for a quote about writing, and Ray Bradbury, owned the page. I mean, but I have one here. It's a little different. Writing in a diary is a really strange experience for someone like me, not only because I've never written anything before, but because it seems to me that later on, neither I nor anyone else will be interested in the musings of a 13-year-old girl. Anne Frank.
Oh.
25 to 30 million books sold. So
Wow.
Yes.
That's something. Well, thank you, Philip.
Oh, thank you.
so
Wonderful.
much.
Thank you.
This
I
has
can't
been-
believe
I
that.
appreciate
I
it.
can't either. And don't forget the Writers Club, the second Friday of the month, 3 o'clock, Performing Arts Center, Dining Room 1. I'm Judy Saxon. Thanks for watching.
I'm Charlie Redner. See you around.